Hello, my dear. Sit down. I need to tell you a story. A story about a family I thought I knew. A family that prayed together, had dinner together, smiled in Christmas photos. Until the day the patriarch fell into a coma. Pause twos. And it was at that moment that I saw who they really were. I saw children fighting over inheritance while their father was still breathing. I saw a daughter crying at the funeral she herself had been planning, 3 months before he died. And I saw something I will never forget. Pause threes. I saw them trying to kill him. Not all at once, not with violence, but slowly, silently. Turning off the machines, reducing medication, blocking visits from those who could save him. Soft dark music begins, 10% volume. All while posting on social media, asking for prayers for Daddy's recovery. This is the story of how an $8 million family became a family of killers. And how an invisible maid became the only witness that mattered. Oh, and there's one thing I need to mention right away. That will everyone thought they knew? There was another one, secret. And when his lawyer finally read it, well, you'll see. Let's start with the day everything changed. March 12th, 1997. Just another Sunday, until it wasn't. Keeping the same tone, atmosphere, and narrative weight. I started working for the Whitmores in January of 1995. 2 years and 2 months before, all of this. The mansion was in Bel Air, Los Angeles. 3 floors, infinity pool, ocean view. The kind of house you see in movies and think, nobody actually lives like that. But they did. The smell was always of fresh lilies. Mrs. Whitmore, Catherine, insisted. Huge vases in the entrance, the living room, the office. Lilies symbolize purity, she used to say. Funny, isn't it? The sound of the house was silence. An expensive silence. The kind of silence that only exists when the walls are thick enough to swallow any scream. And the Whitmores? Perfect, impeccable. Family introduction, specific details. Richard Whitmore, the patriarch, 68 years old. Made his fortune in tech during the 90s, sold the company for $8 billion in 2015. Retired, but still sharp. Played tennis 3 times a week. Read the Wall Street Journal every morning at 6 a.m., exactly. Catherine, the wife. 64. Former model. More surgeries than you could count. Yoga at 7 a.m. White wine at 5 p.m. Always white wine, never more than 1 glass. At least that's what she wanted me to think. And the kids, Marcus, 42. The eldest. Corporate lawyer. Married to Julia, a plastic surgeon. 2 children I never saw smile. Marcus had his father's smile, but his eyes were cold. Shark cold. Then Victoria, 38. The middle child, single. Entrepreneur, or so she claimed, though I never saw her work. Lived in an apartment her father paid for, drove a car her father paid for, lived a life her father paid for. And the youngest, Daniel, 35. Daniel. Daniel was different, an artist, gay. The 2 things his father never truly accepted. He had a boyfriend, James, a literature professor. They were sweet together, real. Daniel visited his father every Thursday, even when Richard barely spoke to him. "Hi, Dad," he'd say. The father would respond without lifting his eyes from the newspaper. But Daniel kept coming back, every Thursday. Remember that. It's going to matter. My routine was simple. Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. Cleaning, cooking, sometimes serving when they hosted dinners. Family dinners happened every first Friday of the month, a tradition of Mr. Whitmore. Everyone had to be there. Marcus and Julia, Victoria, Daniel and James, who always stayed quiet, uncomfortable. Catherine planned the menu. I cooked. They ate. And they talked about nothing. Weather, stocks, neighbor gossip. Never anything real. Never a "how are you?" Never "I love you." Rich families are funny like that. They eat together, but they're alone. But all of this was normal, dysfunctional, but normal. Until March 12th, the day Richard Whitmore had a massive stroke while playing tennis. And everything Everything changed. The hospital called at 10:37 a.m. I know because I was cleaning the living room clock when the phone rang. Catherine answered. She turned pale. Not pale with shock. Pale with something else. Something I couldn't identify yet. Richard had a stroke, she said, hanging up. Calm voice. Strangely calm. He's at Cedars-Sinai, induced coma. She didn't cry. She called the children, one by one. Same phrase, same mechanical tone. Your father had a stroke. He's in a coma. Come to the hospital. Then she grabbed her purse, checked her makeup in the mirror, and said something that froze me. Pearl, you can start packing up his office. We'll need the space. He was alive, in a coma but alive. And she was already organizing. At the hospital, during the first 3 days, they all acted perfectly. Cried in the right places, held each other's hands, posted photos asking for prayers. Marcus posted, "My hero is fighting. Please pray for my father's recovery." 15,000 likes. But inside the hospital room, when they thought no one was paying attention, I heard Marcus whisper to Victoria in the hallway, "How long did the doctors say?" 3 months to a year, but it could be less if... If what? If he doesn't survive an infection? Infection? They didn't say anything else. They saw me pretending to be on my phone. Smiled. That automatic rich people smile for the maid. As if I were furniture. A week later, Catherine called me to a family meeting at the house. Everyone there. Marcus, Victoria, even Daniel, who looked uncomfortable. Pearl, Catherine said, funeral voice. Richard always considered you part of the family. Funny how you become part of the family when they need something. We'll need your help in the coming weeks. Richard will need care at home. Marcus interrupted. The hospital is expensive, very expensive, and if he's going to stay like this for months... It makes more sense to bring him home, Victoria finished. More comfortable, more intimate. You understand. Daniel stayed quiet, looking at his hands. I agreed. Of course I agreed. It's not like I had a choice. But something was wrong. The way Marcus looked at Victoria. The way Catherine didn't cry. The way no one said the word recovery. Only care, comfort, dignity. Words you use for someone who's dying, not someone who's fighting. Richard came home on March 25th. They turned his office into a hospital room. Hospital bed, heart monitor, feeding pump, oxygen tank. Day nurse, 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. I covered after that, watching alarms, calling emergency if needed. In the first days, everyone visited. Catherine sat beside him for hours, held his hand, cried silently. Marcus read financial reports aloud. Keeping you informed, Dad. Victoria arranged the flowers, always lilies. Your favorites, Daddy. Daniel just sat, held his father's hand, whispered things I couldn't hear. And then the meeting started. Closed-door meetings in the dining room. Always when the nurse left. Always without Daniel. I listened, of course. Maids always listen. The will leaves everything divided in 3, Marcus said. Equally. But what about medical costs, Victoria? How long is this going to last? He could stay like this for years. Catherine, calm. The doctors said there's a chance of partial recovery. Small, but it exists. Silence. Marcus finally. And if he recovers, partially, incapacitated but conscious? He would change the will, Victoria replied. Flat tone. No emotion. Another silence. Catherine. Then we need to make sure that, if he wakes up, it's only when it's the right time. I felt ice crawl up my spine. Right time. In the following weeks, I began noticing things. Small things. The feeding pump was always at the lowest level, barely feeding him. I raised it. Next day, it was low again. The heart monitor alarms went off more than they should. Low battery, loose connections. I fixed them. They loosened them again. Catherine insisted on giving him his medication personally. Dismissed the night nurse. Savings, she said. Pearl can monitor. But I saw her crushing fewer pills than she should, Diluting liquids. Forgetting doses. More tense tone. One night, April 15th, I was washing dishes. Midnight. I heard the alarm from Richard's room. I ran. Marcus was there, alone with his father. Back to the door. Hand on the oxygen pump. He saw me, let go. False alarm, he said, smiling. I already checked. He left. I looked at the pump. It was off, red button unlit. How long had it been off? I turned it back on. Richard took a deep, automatic breath. And I knew. I knew they were trying to kill him. I tried to convince myself I imagined it. That Marcus was just checking equipment. That Catherine was just being careful with medication. That Victoria was just what? Why did she measure his heart rate every day and write it in a notebook? And then I saw the notebook. Left open on the bedside table. Dates, heart rate, blood pressure. And in the corner, numbers. 68, you're okay. 65, she limit. 60, year critical. 58, cheer call. They were monitoring, waiting for the numbers to drop enough to call a doctor and say, he declined naturally. My voice trembles slightly, not from fear, from anger. And I there, helping without knowing, accomplice to the slow death of a man. But there was one person they forgot. One person who visited every Thursday. Who actually cared. Daniel. Daniel was the first to suspect. May 2nd, Thursday. He arrived at 6 p.m., like always. But this time, he brought James and a doctor friend. I want a second opinion, he said. Catherine went pale. But what choice did she have? The doctor examined Richard, checked the equipment, reviewed the chart. He stepped out, serious. He's being under-medicated, he said. Dangerously. Nutrition is also inadequate. Who's supervising? I am, Catherine replied. Firm voice, not a wobble, following Dr. Morrison's instructions. Dr. Morrison prescribed twice this dosage. Silence. Marcus, quick. There must have been confusion. We'll adjust immediately. Victoria. We were trying to avoid over-medication. We read it can cause dependency, even in a coma. The doctor looked at them, long, sharp. Adjust it today, or I'll report this to the hospital. When he left, the mask fell. Marcus exploded. What do you think you're doing? Daniel calm, taking care of my father. Taking care? Taking care? Do you know how much it costs to keep him like this? $15,000 a month. Not counting equipment, nurses. His money, Daniel said, not yours. Victoria jumped in. Don't be ungrateful, Daniel. Everything you have. Who gave it to you? That apartment in West Hollywood? The car? I can return them. All of them. But I won't stay quiet while you murder our father. Catherine stood, hit her hand on the table. Murder? How dare you? We're taking care of him, sacrificing our lives, While I what? Visit him? Talk to him? Hold his hand? He's in a coma, Daniel. He doesn't know. And if he does? Marcus, low, dangerous voice. Daniel, you're going to stop this now, or what? Or we'll have to question your mental competence, your history of depression, your life choices. Daniel turned pale. You wouldn't dare. Victoria, sweet, venomous. We'd try to avoid it, but if you force our hand, well, family takes care of family, even when they don't know what's best for themselves. I was in the kitchen, door slightly open, listening to everything, and I thought, they're not just killing the father. They're threatening the son, too. Daniel left, but came back 3 days later. With a lawyer. And documents. Medical power of attorney, he said. I'll be taking over my father's treatment decisions. Marcus laughed. Actually laughed. You don't have power of attorney. Mom does. Did, Daniel corrected. That's from 2019. But in 2021, Dad added an amendment. If he became incapacitated and there was a conflict of interest. Conflict of interest? What conflict? Financial, the lawyer said coldly. If the person holding power of attorney benefits financially from the patient's death, the POA transfers to another family member. And since you're not in the will, Daniel... Exactly, no conflict. The look on Marcus's face, the look. Catherine tried. This is absurd. We love Richard. We would never. Then you'll have no objections to independent medical supervision, the lawyer said, which Mr. Daniel is putting in place, effective immediately. They left the papers, walked out, and I saw it. I saw Catherine pick up the phone, dial. We need to talk, she said, about the will. 2 days later, Catherine and Marcus left at 2 p.m. Victoria stayed to take care of her father. I stayed too, folding laundry in the room next door. But watching, Victoria closed Richard's bedroom door. But not completely, a 5-centimeter gap. I could see through it. She stepped toward the bed, looked at her father, and pulled something from her pocket. A pillow. My heart stopped. She lifted the pillow, hands shaking. Looked at the door, behind her, at her father. I'm sorry, Daddy, she whispered, but you're not going to wake up, and this is killing all of us. She raised the pillow over his face. I moved. Didn't think. Opened the door. Miss Victoria. She dropped the pillow, spun around. Face white, guilty. I was just fixing the pillows. I saw what you were doing. Silence. Her eyes shifted, panic to calculation. You saw wrong. I saw right. Pearl. Sweet, manipulative voice. How long have you worked here? 2 years? 3? You trust us, right? I trusted. And we trust you. So much that maybe it's time we show our gratitude. $50,000 as a bonus for loyalty. She was bribing me. $50,000 to stay quiet while she smothered her own father. No. $100,000. No. Pearlie, be reasonable. I'm telling Daniel. Her face hardened. If you tell, I'll make sure you never work again. Understand? One word from me and suddenly you're an illegal immigrant under investigation, fake documents, deportation. It was a lie. My documents were legitimate, but she didn't know that. And she was desperate enough to threaten it. Try, I said, and I'll go to the police. And say what? That you saw me fixing pillows? Your word against mine? She wasn't wrong. But I had something she didn't. Proof. Because, you see, ever since the day I saw Marcus with the oxygen, I had started recording, satisfied, vengeful tone, my phone, voice recorder, in my apron pocket. Every day, every conversation, 2 weeks of audio, them discussing reducing his medication, them measuring how long he would last, them planning if he didn't survive an infection. And now, I had Victoria confessing attempted murder. I'm sorry, Daddy, but you're not going to wake up. My second pause. I have everything recorded, I said, lying. I didn't have that moment recorded, but she didn't need to know. You what? Recordings, all 3 of you. 2 weeks. One way or another, I'm going to Daniel. You decide whether it also goes to the police. She trembled, literally trembled, and then broke. Sat on the floor, started crying. Not tears of regret, tears of being caught. It wasn't my idea, she sobbed. It was Marcus. He said it was better this way. Quick, no prolonged suffering. That Dad wouldn't want to live like this anyway. Your father doesn't get a choice if you kill him before he wakes up. He's not going to wake up. The doctors gave him 5% chance. 5% isn't 0. Leave, I said. Leave now before I change my mind and call the police right this second. She left, running, sobbing. I locked Richard's door. Called Daniel. I need to talk to you now and bring your lawyer. But the story wasn't over. Because that night at 11 p.m., Richard Whitmore opened his eyes. And the first person he saw was me. When his eyes opened, I thought I was dreaming. 2 months in a coma. Doctors gave him a 5% chance. But there he was, eyes open, glassy, confused, but conscious. Mr. Richard, I whispered, you're back. He tried to speak. He couldn't, feeding tube in his throat. But his eyes followed me. I pressed the emergency button, and I called Daniel, not Catherine. Daniel, come now, your father woke up. Daniel arrived in 20 minutes, with James, with the doctor friend. Catherine arrived 10 minutes later. Marcus, Victoria. They all burst into the room. "Richard!" Catherine cried, running to the bed. "Oh my God, oh my God!" "Real tears, or very fake ones." Marcus' broken voice, "Dad, you're back." Victoria, hiding her face, crying. "And Richard..." Richard looked at them, one by one, and I saw something in his eyes. Recognition? Not just "I know who you are," but "I know who you are." Daniel took his father's hand. "Rest. It's okay now." Richard squeezed back, weak but deliberate. Then his eyes went to me and blinked twice, as if to say, "Thank you." He knew. I don't know how. Maybe those studies about coma patients hearing everything are true. Maybe he heard it all. The conversations, the plans, the attempts. Maybe he felt the wrong dosages, the lack of oxygen, the hunger. And maybe he fought to come back, not just to live, but to make sure they didn't win. 3 days later, Richard was off the tube. Talking, slow, dragging, but talking. Physical therapy, speech therapy, miraculous recovery, the doctors said. And on the 4th day, he asked to see his lawyer, Dr. Helen Morrison. Alone. Only her, him, and Daniel. The meeting lasted 2 hours. When she came out, Dr. Morrison looked at Catherine and Marcus in the waiting room. She smiled. A small, cold smile. "I'll see you at the office next week. We have matters to discuss." Catherine, "What matters?" "Estate matters." The following week, June 15th, 2023, the whole family was summoned to the law office. I was included. "Your name is in the documents," the secretary said. "My name?" Conference room. Long table. Richard in a wheelchair, left side still weak. Daniel beside him. James holding Daniel's hand. Catherine, Marcus, Victoria on the other side. Tense. Dr. Morrison opened a thick folder. "We are here for the reading of the revised will of Richard Whitmore, dated June 3rd, 2023. Marcus, revised when 3 days after your client regained consciousness, while you were, I believe, consulting realtors about selling the residence." Marcus closed his mouth. Dr. Morrison read, "I, Richard Whitmore of sound mind, certified by 3 independent physicians, make the following provisions. To Marcus Whitmore, nothing. You will receive exactly what you plan to give me. Nothing." Marcus turned red. "This is..." "Silence," Richard said, weak but firm. "You've spoken enough these past 2 months. Now listen." Dr. Morrison continued. To Victoria Whitmore, nothing, for the same reason. And the apartment you occupy? Sold. You have 30 days to vacate. Victoria tried to speak. Nothing came out. To Catherine Whitmore, divorce. Papers will be delivered tomorrow. You will receive the minimum allowed by law under partial community property, approximately $400,000. Considering you tried to kill me, it is generous. Catherine stood. Tried to kill you? I took care of you. Richard, calm. You reduced my medication, diluted my nutrition, instructed Marcus to shut off my oxygen. I heard you, Catherine. I heard everything. You were in a coma. Coma is not death. I was there, trapped, listening to you plan my funeral. Dr. Morrison resumed. The entirety of the estate, valued at $8.3 million, will be divided as follows. 60% to Daniel Whitmore, the only child who visited without expecting anything in return. Daniel began crying, silently. 20% to James Whitmore Chen. James Whitmore Chen? Richard. I'm adopting you officially. If you accept, you are more of a son to me than those two. And the remaining 20% to Perla Santos. I froze. What? $166 million, net, for saving my life, for being the only person in this house who saw me as human, not as a bank account. I couldn't breathe. $166 million, working 3 days a week, earning $35K a year. It would take 47 years to save that. Mr. Richard, I don't... You saved my life, Perla. You stayed. You witnessed. You called Daniel when I woke up, not them. You deserve every cent. Marcus exploded. This is insane. We'll contest. Undue influence. He was drugged. Dr. Morrison, please contest. I have 3 psychiatric evaluations certifying full capacity. I have recordings. Recordings? Provided by Parola. 2 weeks of audio. You discussing reduced care, counting how long he would last. Victoria attempting to suffocate him. And I have medical witnesses for criminal negligence. Mr. Whitmore has chosen not to pursue criminal charges. For now. But if you contest the will, he will reconsider. Victoria was white. Marcus, red. Catherine, stunned. Criminally, you could go to prison, Dr. Morrison added, for attempted homicide. Marcus stood and walked out, door slamming. Victoria followed, sobbing. Catherine stayed, looked at Richard. 40 years of marriage, she said. 40 years. 40 years of you waiting for me to die, he replied. She left. We remained 4. Richard, Daniel, James, me. Richard looked at me. Thank you, he said simply. For seeing. For acting. For caring. I'm just a housekeeper, sir. No, your family, real. Daniel hugged his father. First real hug I'd ever seen between them. James, too. And I finally cried. Not because of the money. God knows it changed my life. But because justice exists. Sometimes. Rarely. But it exists. That was a 1.5 years ago. Catherine lives in an apartment in Pasadena. Small. Normal. Works as an image consultant. Makes her own living for the first time in 40 years. Marcus lost half his clients when the story leaked. Attorney who tried to kill father for inheritance isn't great marketing. Victoria vanished. I heard she's in Scottsdale, Arizona, trying to start over. None of them speak to Richard. None of them were invited when Daniel and James married last December. Lighter tone. It was a beautiful ceremony, small, intimate. Richard walked Daniel down the aisle. Still with a cane, but he walked. I was there, not as a maid, as a godmother. And Richard? Fully recovered. It took 8 months of intense physiotherapy, but he plays tennis again. Not as well as before, but he plays. He's writing a book, How to Die Twice, a story of family greed. It'll be released next year. And me? I stopped working as a housekeeper. With $166 million, I don't need to. But you know what I did? I opened an organization, Invisible Voices, for domestic workers to report abuse, neglect, crimes they witness. Because we see everything, and someone needs to listen. So, sweetheart, let me ask you something. Do you have a maid, a driver, a gardener, a nanny? People who enter your home when you think no one is paying attention? Because they're watching. Watching the fights you think are private. Watching the medicine you hide. Watching the papers you leave on the table. Hearing the phone calls you whisper. And maybe, just maybe, they're recording. Richard Whitmore almost died at the hands of his own family. Because they thought no one was watching. But they were wrong. The maid was watching. Pause 3 sec. Penetrating stare. So let me ask you again. What does the maid know about you? Because we remember everything. Good night. And treat well the people who clean your house. You never know when you'll need them to save your life or ruin it.